Nobody in the neighborhood could believe what had happened. A Christian beloved to the entire community was about to be arrested as he was entering his own home. But what really happened? This is the story of a biased police officer who assumes that the man is using the Bible as a cover to break in. But this isn't just a simple misunderstanding. What happens next exposes shocking biases hidden deep within our justice system. Michael was a middle-aged man in his 30s. He was a teacher by profession and a demanding one at that. He put in extra hours to make sure each of his students had the support they needed. After the school day, he would head straight to the community center where he led a Bible study group, sharing his faith and providing a safe space for those seeking guidance. As Michael drove home, he felt a quiet fulfillment settle over him. Leading the Bible study group had been challenging that evening, but rewarding. He found purpose in guiding others, helping them find comfort and clarity, much like the solace faith had brought him in his darkest times. For him, teaching and preaching were two sides of the same coin. Both allowed him to support and uplift others. His students and his group members were his community, his family. The thought filled him with a sense of gratitude and renewed commitment to his calling, despite the long hours and sometimes lonely nights. This particular evening had been a bit longer than usual. It was a Friday, and the group had delved into a heavy discussion, and as he often did, Michael stayed behind to talk with a few members who needed a listening ear. Now, at last, he was home, tired but at peace. He balanced his grocery bags in one hand and his Bible, filled with his notes, in the other as he approached his front door.
All right, let's get inside. A hot cup of tea in bed,
he muttered to himself, his mind already picturing the warmth of his living room. But as he inserted his key, the lock didn't budge. He sighed.
Not today. Come on, just turn.
He twisted the key a little harder, only for it to resist even more.
You've got to be kidding me,
he said, trying to keep his patience. This was the third time this week that the lock had given him trouble, and he made a mental note to get it fixed before it got any worse. Just as Michael was about to make another attempt to twist the stubborn key, the sound of faint sirens filled the quiet neighborhood. He paused, confused.
Sirens? Here?
He thought to himself, but before he could process it, the sirens grew louder and suddenly, flashing red and blue lights flooded his yard.
Whoa, what's going on?
He muttered to himself, turning to see a police cruiser pull up right in front of his driveway, its headlights casting long shadows across his porch. A voice crackled through the loudspeaker, authoritative and echoing,
"Stop right there! Step away from the door!"
The command was sharp, freezing him in place. Michael instinctively raised his hands halfway, baffled and a little startled by the intensity of the response.
This has to be a mistake,
he thought, his heart picking up pace. He could feel the eyes of his neighbors peeking through their windows, blinds shifting as they watched the scene unfold. From the cruiser, a female officer stepped out, her gaze sharp and wary as she approached. She kept her hand on her holster, her steps slow and deliberate as if she was confronting an actual criminal. Her eyes flickered between him and the porch, finally landing on the Bible he was holding under his arm.
"Sir, can you tell me what you're doing here?"
she called out, her voice stern and suspicious, the authority in her tone unmistakable. Michael blinked, still trying to process the situation. He opened his mouth, but for a moment, no words came out.
This is my house,
he said finally, his voice steady but focused. From the corner of his eye, he tried reading the badge pinned to the officer's uniform. It read Linda Matthews. Officer Linda was in her late 30s, with sharp features, dark hair slightly pulled back, and a strict, no-nonsense look in her blue eyes. Her uniform was always neat, reflecting her disciplined approach. Her bias against Christianity came from a strict religious upbringing that left her with bitter feelings. She saw faith as a form of control, and this view sometimes affected her judgment in her work. So, when she saw Michael holding a Bible, her own bias kicked in, making her view him with unwarranted suspicion.
"I'm just having a bit of trouble with the lock,"
Michael said as he was still figuring out what was going on. The officer's expression remained skeptical, her gaze shifting between him, the door, and the Bible.
"Uh-huh,"
she said, her tone cool.
"And you're holding a Bible?"
Michael raised an eyebrow.
"Yes, ma'am. I lead a Bible study at the community center,"
he explained, nodding toward the building a few blocks down.
"Just got back from there, actually."
Her face remained impassive, her eyes narrowing slightly.
"Do you have any proof this is your house?"
she asked. her voice cold. Michael took a steadying breath, choosing his words carefully.
Yes, of course. My ID's in my bag. I can get it for you.
He offered. Before he could move, she raised a hand.
Why don't you step away from the door for now?
She said, taking a step closer. Her eyes again lingered on the Bible in his hand. As Officer Linda watched Michael clutch his Bible, her mind flashed back to her own past, where the mere sight of a Bible had been a symbol of fear rather than comfort. She remembered the way her father's voice would thunder through the small house on Sunday mornings, demanding absolute silence as he read the scripture aloud. Any question she dared to ask, any hint of doubt, was met with a stern look and a lecture on obedience. In her father's eyes, faith wasn't something you felt, it was something you feared. Religion was a code you adhered to, a rigid set of rules that she could never seem to live up to. Officer Linda crossed her arms, her tone almost challenging.
So you lead Bible studies?
Michael nodded, confused by her interest in his religious activities.
Yes, I do. It's a group for people in the community, including students, adults, anyone who wants to discuss faith or just needs support.
Her gaze grew colder.
And you think that gives you a pass, huh? Walking around with a Bible doesn't make you untouchable.
Michael's patience began to wear thin, but he kept his tone respectful.
Excuse me, ma'am. I don't understand what you're implying.
She gave a slight smirk, almost as if she'd caught him in something.
Just answer the questions. You'd be surprised how often people use religion as a cover.
Michael inhaled slowly, maintaining his composure.
Look, I'm just trying to get into my house after a long day of work and helping my community. I'm a teacher, not a criminal,
he said, trying to hold on to his patience. The officer's eyes narrowed.
You got ID?
Yes, he replied, gesturing to his bag.
Yes, it's in my bag, right there.
Ignoring his bag, the officer reached for her radio.
Requesting backup at my location,
she said, her eyes not leaving him. Michael sighed heavily, struggling to keep his calm.
Is this really necessary?
She didn't respond directly.
I'm just doing my job,
she replied coldly. Moments later, another police cruiser pulled up and 2 more officers stepped out. Officer Linden nodded to them, barely glancing at Michael as he muttered,
Possible intruder. Claims he's a Bible study leader.
One of the other officers approached him, his voice calm.
Sir, could we see your ID? If everything checks out, we'll be on our way.
Michael felt a sense of relief.
Thank you,
he said, reaching for his bag. Before he could hand over his ID, Officer Linda spoke again, her tone low and dripping with suspicion.
Religious types. They think they're always in the right.
Michael's hands stilled, frustration simmering.
Ma'am, with all due respect, I'm just trying to go home. I'm a law-abiding person and a part of this community.
Her eyes narrowed further.
So you say? People like you, with the Bible in your hand, thinking it makes you untouchable.
Michael froze. Her words sank in, and he suddenly felt the weight of what was really happening. He glanced down at his Bible, something that had always brought him comfort and helped him guide others. But now, in her eyes, it seemed to be something suspicious, even threatening. Years ago, Michael's wife had passed away suddenly in a car accident, leaving a void he thought he'd never fill. The shock and pain had been overwhelming, and there were moments when he didn't know how he would go on. It was during those darkest days that he found comfort in his faith. Every night he would sit with his Bible, reading passages that reminded him he wasn't alone, even in his grief. His church community rallied around him, and he drew strength from the scriptures, especially verses about resilience, love, and the promise of hope. A sadness settled over him. He'd always believed his faith was a positive force, something that encouraged kindness and respect. But now he realized that, to some, it could be seen differently, something to be doubted or judged. For the first time that night, he felt his heart break a little at how misunderstood his beliefs could be. He looked back at the officer, his voice softer but still steady.
Ma'am, all I'm trying to do is get into my own home. I didn't think carrying a Bible would make me look suspicious.
For a moment, he thought he saw something change in her eyes, but her face stayed cold. Michael took a deep breath, standing a little taller. He wouldn't let this shake his principles. As the flashing red and blue lights flooded Michael's yards, murmurs started rippling through the quiet neighborhood. One by one, lights flickered on in houses up and down the street. Faces appeared at windows, some peering cautiously through blinds, while others cracked their doors open just enough to listen in. The sight of police cars surrounding Michael's house was enough to set off a ripple of unease. Neighbors whispered in hushed voices, trading their thoughts on what could be happening.
I always thought Michael was a good man,
muttered Mr. Peterson, a retired engineer from across the street.
Can't imagine what he's done to deserve this.
Across the street, a younger couple exchanged worried looks. They'd attended Michael's Bible study a few times, finding comfort in the group's warmth and sincerity.
This can't be right.
The husband murmured.
Michael's just a teacher. He's the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it.
But not everyone shared their sentiments. Mr. Smith, watching smugly from his porch, felt a sense of satisfaction as he watched the officers confront Michael.
Finally,
He muttered under his breath.
someone's standing up to all this religious nonsense.
For years, he'd grumbled about the weekly Bible study meetings, calling them disruptions, and insisting that people like Michael shouldn't be spreading beliefs around here. As he saw the officers outside Michael's door, he felt relieved, as though his complaints had been finally taken seriously. Inside her cozy living room, Mrs. Green had been reading by the fire when she noticed the flashing lights from Michael's yard. She set her book down, her brow furrowing with worry. From her window, she could see Michael standing on his porch, grocery bags in hand, facing the police officers with confusion written all over his face. Her heart clenched, and without a second thought, she rose from her seat. Mrs. Green had known Michael since he'd moved into the neighborhood. She'd been one of the first to greet him, offering him a warm pie as a welcome gesture. Over the years, he'd become like family to her. She valued him deeply, not just as a neighbor, but as a pillar of their small community. His Bible study group had brought comfort to so many, including her. She'd attended a few sessions, finding solace in Michael's thoughtful discussions and compassionate demeanor. To her, he wasn't just the man down the street. He was a beacon of kindness, a reminder that faith could be gentle, encouraging, and respectful. Watching the scene unfold, she felt a surge of indignation rise within her.
This is absurd.
She muttered to herself, her hand tightening around the doorknob.
Michael doesn't deserve this, not after everything he's done for us.
Ignoring the nervous pangs in her chest, she stepped outside and walked toward Michael's house, determined to intervene. She approached the scene with calm authority, her gaze moving between Michael and the officers.
What's going on out here?
She asked, her voice clear yet gentle.
Mom, please return inside.
Officer Linda said sharply, not wanting any interference. But Mrs. Green wasn't deterred. She crossed her arms, planting herself firmly in place.
Officer, that's Michael,
She said, giving Michael a reassuring look.
He's my neighbor and a teacher at the school down the street. Is there some kind of mistake here?
The officer's face hardened, her skepticism growing, but one of the other officers took note of Mrs. Green's words and decided to engage with her more openly.
Ma'am, you're saying you know him?
He asked politely, his tone much less combative than his colleagues.
Yes, of course. He's lived here for years. He's a teacher, and he even runs Bible study at the community center.
Mrs. Green explained, her eyes full of conviction.
You're making a mistake. Someone's clearly misinformed.
Mrs. Green turned her gaze to the female officer, narrowing her eyes slightly.
And who exactly reported this, officer?
She asked firmly, crossing her arms. The officer hesitated, her face revealing a flicker of discomfort. She glanced at her colleagues, who exchanged looks as if unsure how much to disclose.
That's not necessary.
The female officer replied, looking away.
It was a call from a concerned neighbor.
Mrs. Green, however, was persistent.
Well, if my friend is being treated like a criminal on his own property, I think we all have a right to know where this concern is coming from. Now, who called this in?
Her voice, though calm, was unwavering. After a tense pause, Officer Linda reluctantly spoke.
It was Mr. Smith.
Mrs. Green's face shifted in recognition, her expression annoyed. She shook her head.
Mr. Smith?
She let out a sigh, her voice tinged with frustration.
I should have known. That man's been waiting for an excuse to call something like this on Michael. Ever since he started that Bible study group, Mr. Smith had a problem with him. He's always muttering about how people like Michael shouldn't be spreading religion around here.
Mr. Smith was a well-known dentist at a local clinic, an outspoken atheist in his mid-40s. For years, he and Michael had been at odds, their relationship soured by clashing beliefs and ongoing neighborhood disputes. Mr. Smith often voiced his dislike for religion, especially Christianity, and he wasn't shy about making his opinions known. Over time, his skepticism towards Michael's Bible study group turned into open hostility, with arguments that flared over everything from parking spaces to property boundaries. The tension between them had only grown, leaving little chance for reconciliation. One of the backup officers listened, clearly re-evaluating the situation. He exchanged a knowing look with his colleague and nodded toward Mrs. Green.
That changes things.
he said, acknowledging the biased nature of the call. One of the backup officers decided to escalate the situation by calling Officer Brown, the Deputy Chief of Police. He stepped aside, pulling out his radio to make the call.
Deputy Chief Brown, this is Officer Davis. We've got a situation here that needs your input,
he said, casting a quick glance at the female officer, then at Michael, who stood nearby with Mrs. Green beside him. The radio crackled, and a deep, authoritative voice responded.
This is Brown. Go ahead, Officer Davis.
Officer Davis kept his tone steady.
Sir, we're responding to a reported break-in, but it appears to be a misunderstanding. The man in question, Michael, is actually the homeowner, a teacher and well-known community member. The report was filed by a neighbor, but there seems to be some personal bias involved.
There was a pause on the line, then Brown's voice came back, firm and direct.
Who's handling the scene?
Officer Linda initiated the call and has been leading the interaction, sir.
Davis replied carefully.
But there are concerns with how it's being handled.
Concerns?
Officer Brown's voice grew sharper.
What exactly do you mean?
Sir, the caller, Mr. Smith, is known to have a personal issue with Michael because of his involvement in a local Bible study group. It's become clear that this biases might have influenced both the call and Officer Linda's approach.
Another pause, then Officer Brown responded, his tone resolute.
Understood. I'm on my way. Maintain order and handle it strictly by the book until I arrive. I'll want a full report from every officer on site.
Yes, sir.
Officer Davis replied, relief evident in his tone. He ended the call and turned back to the group, giving Michael and Mrs. Green a reassuring nod. Then, addressing Officer Linda, Davis relayed,
Deputy Chief Brown is on his way and expects this handled by protocol.
Deputy Chief Officer Brown was a tall, muscular man in his late 50s with a calm yet commanding presence. Known for his even-handed approach, he treated everyone fairly, regardless of their background or beliefs. Brown had built a strong reputation for handling every situation with respect and kindness, and his officers looked up to him as a model of integrity. His solid frame and steady gaze only added to his natural authority, but it was his sense of fairness that truly set him apart. With the news that Deputy Chief Brown was on his way, the atmosphere shifted. Officer Linda's confidence wavered, and she stepped back, her expression tense. Michael, still feeling the sting of her earlier remarks, shared a brief look with Mrs. Green, who gave him an encouraging nod. A few minutes later, the unmistakable sound of a third car approaching broke the silence. A black, unmarked vehicle pulled up, and out stepped Deputy Chief Brown. A tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 50s, Brown's presence was commanding, and he scanned the scene with a look of calm authority. Brown walked up to Officer Davis, giving him a nod before turning his gaze to Linda. His face was unreadable, but there was a definite edge in his voice.
Officer Linda,
He began, his voice firm.
I'd like to hear your account of what's happened here.
Linda straightened, a faint flush on her cheeks as she began to explain.
Sir, we received a call reporting a possible break-in. I arrived and found this man, she nodded toward Michael, attempting to enter the house. When questioned, he claimed to be the homeowner, but I believed it necessary to request backup due to inconsistencies and because of the Bible he was carrying.
Deputy Chief Brown's eyes narrowed and his tone grew sharper.
And what were these inconsistencies?
Linda hesitated, glancing quickly at Officer Davis as if hoping for support.
The man's possession of the Bible seemed unusual given the report. I wanted to ensure the situation was handled properly, especially in light of the caller's concerns.
Brown's expression tightened, a hint of disbelief in his eyes.
So, Officer Linda, let me get this straight. You requested backup for a man at his own door based solely on his possession of a Bible?
Linda shifted uncomfortably.
Yes, sir, but I was only...
Brown cut her off, his voice firm.
That's unacceptable. As public servants, we do not jump to conclusions based on appearances or personal biases. It is our duty to serve and protect the community, not act on prejudice, whether it's our own or from biased callers. Do you understand that?
Linda's face turned red as she looked down.
Yes, sir.
Look at Mr. Michael and say that.
Brown instructed, his tone strict with anger. Linda took a shaky breath and finally looked at Michael.
I apologize, Mr. Michael. I misjudged the situation and made assumptions that I shouldn't have.
Michael, though still hurt, gave her a nod.
Thank you, Officer Linda. I hope this experience helps in the future.
Deputy Chief Brown looked back at Linda.
I expect this to serve as a serious reminder, officer. Officer Davis and his team acted by protocol, and I expect nothing less from you in every interaction.
Turning back to Michael, Brown's voice softened.
Mr. Michael, I'm sorry for any distress this incident has caused you. Assumptions were made here that never should have been.
Michael nodded, exhaling a steady breath.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Brown. I appreciate that. I just didn't expect to feel like a suspect in my own home.
Brown gave him a respectful nod.
You shouldn't have, and that's something I will address with everyone involved. If you have further concerns, you can contact me directly.
Mrs. Green, visibly relieved, nodded gratefully.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Michael's been a wonderful neighbour and a mentor to so many here. This really wasn't deserved.
Deputy Chief Brown acknowledged her words.
Thank you, Mrs. Green. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again.
With the situation finally resolved, Brown extended his hand to Michael.
Once again, Mr. Michael, my sincerest apologies. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything further.
Michael shook Brown's hand, feeling a sense of closure.
Thank you for handling this fairly,
he said. Deputy Chief Brown turned to the officers, signaling for them to wrap up. The officers moved back to their vehicles and one by one they departed, leaving the yard quiet once more. Mrs. Green gave Michael a reassuring pat on the arm before heading back to her own house, her expression one of relief and support. Inside, Michael finally sat down, letting the tension of the night ease. Though the experience was unsettling, he felt grateful for people like Mrs. Green and Deputy Chief Brown, who had shown him respect when he needed it most. Back at the station, Deputy Chief Brown called Officer Linda into his office. After reviewing the incident, he issued a formal reprimand and suspended her, requiring her to complete sensitivity training. The goal was clear, as it was not just to correct her behavior, but to help her face the biases clouding her judgment. In the weeks after the incident, Linda couldn't stop thinking about Michael. His calm, steady demeanor lingered in her mind, challenging her views on faith. One evening, she found herself at the community center, waiting for him outside. When he stepped out, Michael looked surprised but welcoming. Linda took a deep breath.
Michael, I wanted to apologize. I misjudged you. That night, it wasn't right, and I'm sorry.
Michael smiled gently.
Thank you, Linda. It takes courage to say that.
Linda hesitated.
How do you stay so calm? How do you just forgive?
Michael nodded thoughtfully.
I wasn't always this way. Years ago, I lost my wife suddenly. It nearly broke me. I turned to faith, not out of obligation, but because I didn't know where else to go. Over time, it helped me see that forgiveness is a choice we make for our own peace.
Linda looked down, feeling the weight of her past resentments.
I grew up seeing faith as judgment, something I had to escape. I think I projected that onto you.
Michael nodded with understanding.
It's easy to let our past shape how we see others. Faith doesn't have to be a cage. For me, it's been a light in dark times. And kindness is a choice too, Linda. We all carry things, but it's what we choose to do with them that matters.
Linda felt a strange sense of relief.
Maybe it's time I let go of some things.
Michael's smile grew.
You're always welcome here. Sometimes finding peace means looking forward rather than back.
As she walked away, Linda felt a small, unexpected peace, as if she'd found a bit of light in the least expected place. A rude nurse belittles a Christian woman's labor pain, not realizing her husband owns the hospital. The twist that follows is unforgettable.